All right, for those of us who've been around here long enough, you know Idaho, and more frequently the Treasure Valley, has 5 seasons. Smashed in between full-blown summer and fall is smoke season, and it's certainly clogging our transition to autumn at this moment, doing its damage to the air quality, which is canceling our sporting events across the area. We're a bit better than we were at the end of last week, just unhealthy for sensitive groups today, not unhealthy for everyone like we were on Friday. But this threat of dirty air in our lungs has become so late summer commonplace, even saying Idaho has 5 seasons has become a bit cliche. Speaking of cliche, what does smoke have to do with another Idaho stereotype, the potato? Well, researchers from the University of Idaho and Boise State are studying the correlation between smoke in the air and potatoes in the ground, and during harvest season, which seems to happen at the same time. Here's Joe Paris.
Hazy skies from wildfire smoke is a reality of summer here in Idaho. But sometimes that smoke gets so thick that events like high school sports, for example, are called off. It just isn't healthy to be running around and breathing in all that smoky air for hours on end. But have you ever wondered what else that wildfire smoke might be impacting in the background? Researchers from the University of Idaho and Boise State are locked in on a crossroads of classic Idaho topics.
Smoke and potatoes, and figure out the economic impact of the state of Idaho through that.
Dr. Owen McDougall is the chair of the Boise State Chemistry Department and director of the Food and Dairy Innovation Center.
We have an Idaho State Department of Agriculture specialty crop block grant that is funding our work for a 2-year study to look at the influence of smoke on potato all the way through, from growing through to processed product.
Research and work on the project continues, but the team of Broncos and Vandals are aiming for meaningful results very soon.
I would say it's the most comprehensive study to date. I mean, we're everything from looking at 3 different varieties of potatoes in smoke exposure and control group, and following them all the way through the life cycle. So growth, development, processing, storage resilience, and then doing economic analysis and how that impacts the broader economy of the state.
The catalyst for the research came from McCain Foods. They began to notice that their potatoes didn't seem to store well after intense wildfire years.
We believe it may be species dependent. So some varieties of potatoes are more susceptible to rangeland and forest fire smoke than others. And what we're hoping for is that growers will benefit from the study by having processors select contracts for varieties of potatoes that will be resistant to the influence of smoke.
McDougall's colleague, Dr. Mike Thornton from the University of Idaho, is actually in the field right now working to study crops.
They have set up enclosures. They're doing smoke treatment and control groups. And then through that process, they're monitoring the photosynthesis of the plants and the tuber development and size, both in smoke and control group potatoes.
The work fits perfectly with the Food and Dairy Innovation Center, designed to look at real-world problems in Idaho to find solutions to help Idahoans.
Our goal behind that was to provide a research resource for industry, and having someone like Addie Waxman come to us from McCain Foods and say, hey, we have a problem. Let's put together a team to do the research in order to get the data and come up with fact-inspired response to how to address this problem, to me is the most fascinating thing.
The findings from the research could help shape what varieties of potatoes are grown in the future here in Idaho.
We believe it may be species dependent. So some varieties of potatoes are more susceptible to rangeland and forest fire smoke than others. And what we're hoping for is that growers will benefit from the study by having processors select contracts for varieties of potatoes that will be resistant to the influence of smoke.
So the next few weeks should yield some interesting info because the harvest is coming up in about 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the area. And after that point, researchers will get a really good sense of how the smoke is influenced the development. And then they will get into some chemical analysis in the lab at Boise State. From there, they can determine how the chemical composition of the potatoes has actually been impacted by the presence of smoke. So they're really able to look at it, Brian, at a very molecular level and then at a very, 50,000 foot level. Like, how does this impact the Idaho economy?
So I assume it'd be more of an impact after they're harvested more than in the ground, because again, the wildfire season, as you mentioned, kind of correlates more with the harvest season as well. The question I have then is, what about the tomatoes that I'm growing in my garden right now?
Yeah, well, talking with the team this afternoon, it came up, and they say if, they're able to, they'd like to do this type of research on other crops other than, potatoes. Of course, we know the wildfire smoke here at the end of the summer, it impacts harvest for a lot of things, not just potatoes. So this is the first project they're working on, but they do hope, as you just suggested, to look at other crops to see, what Idaho farmers need to do, because the truth is, unfortunately, the wildfire season, it's not going anywhere. We can expect this smoke every summer.
It keeps growing every year and gets later as well. All right, thank you very much, Joe.